Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options, not having a clear plan is the enemy, using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust, the best way to exit highly appreciated assets tax deferred so you create, preserve, and grow your wealth. I'm your co-host, Pearson York, filling in for Brett Schwartz. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best wealth, business, real estate, and leadership individuals in the world share ideas, tell stories, and inspirations. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. As always, we're streaming on expertcrdsecrets.com, the Capital Gains Tax Solutions YouTube channel, Kingdom Luxury Realty YouTube channel, and the Kingdom Luxury Realty Facebook channel. I'm super excited about our next guest, four-time best-selling author, and just insurance guru, leader extraordinaire, my buddy, Jeff Arnold. Jeff, how you doing today, man?
Hey, I'm well. Thank you so much. Excited about today's conversation. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So, four-time best-selling author. How did you get into the insurance business?
Oh, I think you mean the exciting, sexy, and awesome insurance business. But
The
yeah,
exciting, sexy, awesome insurance business.
in reality, if I could take just a couple minutes and back up, it's an interesting story for some. I'll try to make it an interesting story for all. But true story. I'm 14 years old. I'm standing on a hay bale in the middle of tobacco and hayfield in Kentucky, Western Kentucky, with my friend Chuck working the summer as a teenager in the tobacco and hayfields. Up drives this guy in the long driveway in a four-door Buick with his windows rolled up. This is important because this means the guy had air conditioning. And for us, a kid in the 70s, that meant that was cool. So this guy steps out in this pressed, really crisp white shirt with a tie. And I asked my friend Chuck, hey, what's that guy do? And he said, insurance or something like that. And so the short answer to your question is it was implanted in my brain as a young teenager. It wasn't until a decade plus later when I had failed at doing theater and acting and then gotten out of the Army that I fell in to the industry of insurance where we now focus on mass affluent, high net worth, and private client space. So again, that's a really long-winded answer, but it's kind of sets the stage for how someone would get into this business for 30 years.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
So we just had Memorial Day pass, and we had a great time. But we always like to thank our people that keep us free. So from the bottom of our hearts, we sincerely thank you for your service.
Awesome. Thank you.
And the sexy, amazing world of insurance, right? Like a lot of people are like, insurance, but there's a lot of money in insurance, so it can definitely be sexy. So, all right. So, what are one or two strengths that you have that have led you to be a successful four-time best-selling author on Amazon? Over there.
So, first of all, I'd love to take credit, but the really successful people listen to counsel, take guidance, even though it hurts. And so I think if I'm fortunate, and I am, to have made 4 of my 5 books be bestsellers, is my publisher in the beginning told me, quite frankly, she said, Jeff, you write very constipated. Like you write like you're trying to be a professor, and that will not fly. People are way too busy, and no disrespect to people, but she said over and over, you have to write on a 4th and 5th grade level so they can quickly digest it, take it in and move on. And so once all my manuscripts were rewritten, right, to not sound so constipated or to connect, engage, align with the reader, they kind of started selling. And so one of the strengths, I guess, you would take away from that is not only be open to criticism, but be open to change and embrace that, because it helped me transition from, I'm still in the insurance space and run a technology company in the insurance space, but also to be able to say we're a best-selling author is simply because we're able to not take ourselves so seriously and listen to some guidance.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking that constructive criticism, not getting too hurt by it, but then, implementing it is really important, because you can take all the advice in the world, but if you don't put it into practice, it's not wisdom, right? So
Very true. Very true.
So yeah, that's an amazing strength. And then it sounds like the other thing is that you're able to kind of, digest things and simplify them. I mean, obviously you had to distill the professor, paper into the fourth grade reading level. So obviously that requires a level of expertise and mastery in order to do that.
Yeah, it is a fitful. Anyone who's written, I would submit to you that, it is, of course, a quite fitful exercise, right? And it's painful because you write something and then you go back an hour later or the next day and you reread it. And you're like, oh, it's great. And then you come back a day later, you're like, this is excrement. Who wrote this, right? And so it is an exercise in self-introspection, self-dialogue, good and bad. And so but it's a wonderful cathartic experience too, right? To keep refining the written word and challenging your thoughts and trying to crystallize them in a way that they speak to other people. Because any business owner, executive that is listening to your podcast, we often suffer from speaking to impress or speaking to transfer knowledge. And the real secret in superior human relations is speaking to connect with people, not speaking to impress or not speaking to transfer information, but speaking to connect. That's just very vital. And that's a great takeaway. I'm not telling you listeners something they don't already know, but it might be a poignant, timely reminder for someone.
Dive into that a little bit more. So what do you mean by speaking to connect rather than to transfer knowledge or to impress?
Yeah, and so I think, it's, and I don't mean to be sexist, but it is mostly a male trait, I would submit, that if we have a microphone or an audience, then our tone may change. The use of our vocabulary words may change. We may use many more adjectives and quite a few more verbs, again, to sound impressive, because that's what we want to do. And we mistake the thought process in our brains that if I use these large words or if I speak in a way that is impressive, it will gain me the attention. But quite literally, everyone's mind is so preoccupied and so captured that in order to cut through the noise and get them to engage with you and listen to you, you have to speak not to impress or not maybe to transfer your knowledge to someone else, but to keep them engaged and just connect, right? And so there's a difference in speaking to impress, speaking to say, oh, look how smart I am, look how much knowledge I have, let me give it to you. You have to connect with them first because their mind is wandering off in a million different places. And there are many ways to do it. I kind of use self-deprecating humor and timely pauses sometimes just to make sure the audience is still engaged.
So what's one or two? This is totally off the grid. Now I'm totally going.
We're geeking out. That's great, man. That's why
I'm going
we're here.
rogue, man, for sure. This is fascinating to me. So give me an example. Like how do we put this into practice?
Yeah. So let's say because we spend a lot of time in the high net worth private client, we call it mass affluent space, right? In my firm, right? Sure. And so when as we're teaching our famously friendly humans, as we call them, our agents, some would call them, but when we're teaching our famously friendly humans how to connect with folks, especially if they're high net worth private client, they're very busy, time's very valuable, and they want to show you how successful they are. That's good. But you also want to make sure that you engage with them. And so relative to the example that you ask about, instead of talking about what insurance would bore everyone or using the word risk transfer to impress them or risk financing to have them, ask you more questions about insurance, just seek to connect with them in a question about, tell me about how you got started in your business, or tell me what's the most important thing in your life right now. Or if they bought a new car, just what color is it? Where's your first drive? And so instead of trying to take over the conversation and lead it to a sales call or a sales transaction or to list your business with us or whatever, get to know the person, connect with the person, and everything else will take care of itself. And so it's not easy to do because we're programmed to be very precision oriented, right? We're task minded. So we want to move to the next question or move to the next function or move to ask for the sell. But really, if you connect with someone, right, again, without speaking at them or trying to impress them, just have true, genuine connection, then all the suspicion is waived about why they want to do business with you. And the trust levels are so increased that they end up just saying, well, what do we have to do to finish this and make, you our agent or list our business with you or have you handle our taxes? And those will really elevate at the end of a conversation if you're doing it right. And again, getting connected, not just trying to be impressive.
Yeah. So making sure you're really building that rapport and focusing on the person's focusing on the person building the relationship as opposed to just trying to go for like an immediate close. It's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's probably because, I'm from 4 generations of pastors in my family. And so it's always, there's always some type of missionary zeal working in my brain, even though I'm in the capital intensive world of insurance, right? But there's always something about that. And I remember being told one time that you'll make more friends in a year by becoming interested in other people than you will in a decade by trying to get people interested in you, right?
Yeah,
And so
for
this
sure.
is just in any business you're in, that's very vital relative information. So
Yeah, it's gold if you aren't already doing that. try that. There's tons of books on it too. How to win friends and influence people. I mean, even going through and reading the Gospels and all that kind of stuff. Like it's that's littered throughout everything. It's just everywhere. So yeah, that's good wisdom right there. Let's dive in. I got to get back on track here. So
no worries. I got us off track. My apologies.
it's all good. So insurance, right? Sexy, beautiful, amazing world of insurance, right? Tell me what the 4 books you wrote. We touched on it a little bit before the podcast, but tell the listeners what you got going on with those.
Yeah, so my first one was I was encouraged by a friend of mine. Again, I don't take credit myself. I got to stand on the shoulders of some very awesome men who were mentors to me, and I was only smart enough to shut up and listen and be taught. And so the first one was about how we had bought and sold 40 different insurance firms and 2 different insurance companies over the year. And a much older gentleman at the time, I was in my 40s, he said, Jeff, you need to catalog this, memorialize this, codify this. You've done what a lot of people haven't been able to do. And so you need to write about it. And so the art of the insurance deal is really about us buying and selling agencies and more about the failures than successes. There's not a lot of chest thumping or saying how great we are. It's really about where we failed in the due diligence, how we didn't factor in some of the tax consequences, how one of the times we accelerated and went past our checklist and got met with a nice gentleman from the Treasury Department said that there were so many liens against it. How did you get past the UCC filing? So, great stuff. And I raise my hand and say, if there's a way to fail and do it wrong, then yes, learn from me. I'm the poster child for doing it wrong, but we're still standing. And then I'll move quickly through the rest of them. The next one was how to beat your insurance company, which is literally just what we teach our clients in RightSure is think holistically about your insurance program. And instead of trying to spend 15 minutes to save 15%, realize this truth. You are going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in your lifetime to the insurance companies. It's probably better to get a plan in place with an agent. If you want to do yourself, do it, but get some sophisticated knowledge about risk financing and risk transfer and develop a plan that isn't just chasing premium savings, but is a lifelong plan to get some of those premiums back to you. And then how to beat the insurance companies really by playing in their game of actuarial understanding and paying less for insurance overall. So it's a fantastic book. And then the next 2 are about leveraging technology in our insurance space. And it's applicable to any company, right? Because you're either one of 3 things. You're tech-enabled, tech-forward, or tech-shackled. And I wrote it because one of my big problems was I was always chasing after the next shiny technology piece, software as a service, thinking that's going to make RightSure better, faster, right? More amenable to shareholders and to customers. And in reality, great firms use technology to accelerate growth. It's not a replacement for growth. So that book talks a little bit about that. And the last one's Insurance Evolved. It's just some predictions on where I think insurance will be in the next 3 to 5 years. A fun little, I call it a primer. It's about 35 pages. So that's a brief synopsis of all of them, but it's fun to commit that to paper and then to watch them all be bestsellers on Amazon. I had no intention of that. It's been fantastic, though.
Awesome. So where can people get copies of those on Amazon?
Yeah. So an easy place to start is just Amazon and search Jeff Arnold and insurance. But also, if you're bored and have an extra 30 seconds, jeffarnold.com is my personal website, and they're on there.
Awesome. Sweet. Okay. So I wanted, you mentioned something in the first book when you were talking about all the do's and don'ts, and a lot of the don'ts, right? When you're about to buy insurance and you miss some tax consequences and stuff. And since it's a tax show, I am a little bit curious about, what happened there. So what was the story with the tax consequences?
Fantastic story. Laid awake at night, staring at the ceiling, going, "What have I done?" Right. So learn from the idiot in front of you today that you are listening to. So without mentioning names, it was kind of I don't want to say a sob story, but it was a fire sale. This person was leaving their spouse. They needed to sell their firm, and rather quickly. Like, this is, hey, it was really kind of, Jeff, can you help us out? And so my error, not theirs. Instead of moving through our multi-page, 100+ step due diligence things, we just accelerated. I just accelerated. It's my fault. I had a small team, but I kept moving it faster than it should have gone. Long story short, get to the transaction. It was an asset purchase, wasn't a stock sale, but it's an asset purchase. We didn't, run a UCC filing. We skipped a lot of part of our due diligence. About 35 days after the deal was sold, checks are cashed, money's transferred, I get a visit from a treasury officer going, "Are you the new owner of this kind of thing?" "Well, yes, we are." "Well, wasn't theirs to sell. There's liens against it everywhere."
Oh, no.
You can imagine I've already given out precious corporate capital, cash, some borrowed, some of our own cash. And so it was a nightmare. It ultimately remedied itself by us working with them, and lots of legal fees. Long story short, and this thing for your clients is, man, don't skip your due diligence and make sure you've got good tax counsel and guidance on your team. Otherwise, you will be like me.
Wow, that must have been a time in your life that was not super sexy and awesome, but very. Probably lost some pounds sweating those ones out, huh?
Yeah, those are the best educations. Agree. I can look back on it and laugh now. Then I assure you, I was not laughing, right? But now you look back like, okay, we weathered the storm. We've been fortunate. We jumped through that hurdle. But at the time, when the middle of the war, right, it was trench warfare. I'm like, oh, what did we do? So, yeah. But the ability to share that and be able to talk about those failures, right? Everyone wants to talk about their successes, but when you tell people the failures you've made, again, that's connected. It's like, oh, you're real. You could have lost everything, and it's a good reminder. Don't be an idiot. Don't be me. Right?
Do due diligence.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. So you talked about buying and selling a bunch of different ones. So the tax events, like the capital gains tax, what do you guys do for that?
Yeah, so that's a very important part of the conversation, right? And it's got to weave its way in from the very beginning. And how we handle it is we advise them to go, because we're not in that space, right? I don't have the knowledge that you have or the experience that your firm does. And so we advise them, listen, this will be our offer. Go push this up against not only your legal counsel, but your tax advisors and your counsels, and see what the tax burden, the tax bite's going to be. And then if we need to rearrange the payment structure or how we're doing it, part stock, part asset sale, part goodwill, how do you draft the agreements that's agreeable to both, right? Because we need some deductions and write-offs, and they do too. But it's really it's a place where both of you have to meet in the middle and compromise, right? And so I often said this it's a good takeaway for anyone that buying and selling businesses, because they always want to know, well, how much is my agency worth? How much is my insurance operation worth? Or how much is my food service business worth? Whatever it is. And I always tell them, listen, your business is worth what someone's willing to pay for it and what you're willing to sell it for. That's exactly what it's worth, right? So that number is going to be different on both sides. When you come to that number, now there's the tax bite, the capital gains piece, the other piece. And so that could move the number in either direction. So it's hard to give you, exact answer. What you need to be doing is get your lawyer involved, get your capital gains people involved, your tax people involved, and then the contract folks and the money people involved. So that's a long-winded answer. Sorry, but that's how we make sure it's part of the conversation.
No, absolutely. And I mean, with the business, you guys don't have like the 1031 that you would get if you had like a real estate transaction or something like that too, right? You can't use 1031, correct?
Correct. Now, I'm not an expert in this. I've certainly participated in a 1031 on the personal side, but and this is your wheelhouse. It seems like there's a 1035 for some business assets or something, but I could be leaving your listeners down a rabbit hole. That's my only experience with that, but not 1031's only been in the personal residence space in my experience.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I'm pretty confident you can't sell a business with a 1031. I'm very confident, and that's going to be one of the biggest frustrations with it. But I will give you a little nugget that you have. So, are you currently buying and selling other insurance companies now, or are you kind of out of that space altogether?
It's not our primary function anymore. We're focused on our technology offerings, but they present themselves, several times a year. So.
Gotcha. Okay, so one of the things that we use is what's called a deferred sales trust, which allows you to sell any asset. It could be a business, could be stock, could be real estate, could be primary home, could be Bitcoin, whatever, and defer all the tax, and then you're able to invest it in whatever assets you want. It's like kind of agnostic, unlike a 1031, where you basically have to sell real estate and go back into real estate, or sell real estate and go into like oil and gas, like mining or whatever, right? And then you got like a long, you don't have a long time to find an asset with a 1031. You got 45 days to identify, 180 days to close. With this, you have your time horizon is whenever you want. You control the timing. So it's a very unique strategy that allows you to sell a business, defer the tax, invest the funds in whatever you want. And when time comes, if you want to go back into real estate, you can, or if you want to go back and start up a new business, you can, or whatever. So we had a gentleman who sold a business for $2.6 million. He deferred $700,000 in capital gains tax, and he put a good portion of that into a development deal where he's building multifamily units in Tennessee. I think it's like 72. So you're able to do those kind of things on your timing. So it's a very powerful strategy for exiting any sort of highly appreciated assets. So for your clients in the future, you have something like, hey, go check this out, because this will definitely be a significant, strategy to help save millions and millions of dollars in taxes.
That's fantastic. Actually, and of course, I'm going to connect with you after our show and dive into that a little deeper. But for my own edification knowledge on the deferred sales tax trust, so not to get too deep in it, but you just create a separate trust, move those assets into it, or move the post-sale purchase price into it, and then at some point down the road, you've got to pay the tax bill, or how does what's the machination?
So the mechanics, like the quick overview mechanics of it, are like, let's say you have an insurance business, right, that you want to sell to a buyer, right, ultimate buyer. And you're going to sell, just hypothetically, right? Your basis on these insurance companies are relatively low, I'm assuming, right? Like you don't have a ton. So, I mean, if you sell the business for, $2 million, right? And you have if you're in California where I'm at, you have a tax bill of 37%. So, I mean, close to a little bit, about a third, a little more than a third of the business. So, of that $2 million, you get 600,000 or so in capital gains tax. So what you would do is you would line up your buyer like you normally would, but before you would close, you interject an unrelated third-party trustee. That's Capital Gains Tax Solutions. We buy your business for $2 million, and we turn around immediately and we sell your business for $2 million to the ultimate buyer. The ultimate buyer funds the trust, and then we turn around and we write you a note. and we say, hey, Jeff, we owe you $2 million with, a preferred rate of return of whatever we discussed beforehand with all your legal people and all your team. Right. And we say, okay, now we're going to go invest the funds until you come up with a good idea and where you want to invest it. And you can kind of basically use it as almost like a self-directed IRA account where you can kind of like invest it in whatever funds you want whenever you want. And it's just technically it's a Missouri business trust that only does business with you. So you can JV with it and go back into real estate or whatever. But it's not restricted by like kind, like a 1031 is. It doesn't have time constraints like 1031s do. It works for businesses, which 1031s don't. So there's just a ton of advantages to it about it. But yeah, it's a phenomenal strategy, especially if you're selling insurance company. What does a typical insurance company sell for?
So a company's different than an agency. A company could be a multiple of EBITDA, right? Agencies could be a multiple of revenue or multiple of EBITDA. But to give you just a general ballpark, anyway, from in this current environment, anywhere from a low of 2.2 times revenue or 10 times EBITDA to a high of 3.8 times revenue or 14 times EBITDA. So there's a little band for you there.
Yeah. So anywhere between like 2 to 4% of revenue is your multiplier.
Times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you said percent, not percent, but times.
2 to 4 times revenue. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Everyone's all of a sudden going, "Oh my God, I got to work till I'm 90."
No. 2 to 4 times revenue.
Yeah.
Is what and what is an insurance agency if you're good, right? Like what are they typically bringing in?
Well, we've bought them anywhere from a couple $100,000 to $100 million, right? And so
Wow.
in joint venture space, but those are one-offs, right? The majority, right? This is an internal data point. I don't know how validated it is, right? Like Insurance Journal or some of those, but the majority of them are under 1.2 million in revenue, right? They're just the ones you see on the street corners, the so-and-so insurance agency. They're, under 1.5 collectively, probably an average of 1.2. And then there's some that have lots of locations that might be a little more, but it's mostly a lot of small businesses. I don't want to call them mom and pop, but small businesses that are feeding lots of families. And the owner is becoming aged, right? Like the average age is 68 years old. And so there's this tsunami of capital being poured in through private equity firms into our business, there's a lot of consolidation and aggregation, right? Just an immense amount in the insurtech space and even insurtechs like, well, I need an agency distribution force, so let's go buy agencies. So it's a very, very active space.
As the revenue increases, does the multiplier increase?
Yes, depending on the niche, right? So let's just kind of peel that back a little bit. So if you're like our firm, right, shares in multiple niches. We have our private client, high net worth, private client space, right? Or mass affluent. That obviously is going to be a much higher multiple because the average person pays over $8,000 a year for their insurance premiums, right? And then you've got what we would call them the Robinsons, right? The middle America, which has maybe an auto, home, and a boat or something, and that's going to be good. But if you have an agency that's just a whole bunch of, under 30-year-olds with just a car and maybe a renter's insurance policy, there's no loyalty in that age segment. They shop online, they change every 6 months to 18 months. And so absolutely unequivocally, yes, is the answer to that.
Yeah.
The valuation for that firm is going to go south, probably real close to 2 or under 2, just because there's no retention, right? So
right. Interesting. Okay. Well, cool. Jeff, we're kind of coming up on our time here. I did want to make sure. So where can people get a hold of you?
Perfect. Yeah, appreciate this. So let me just, if I've caught an ear of one of your listeners, the best place, right, is on LinkedIn. Just look up Jeffrey Arnold, Jeff Arnold on LinkedIn. Put the word insurance in there. You find me. Love to connect. Not looking for followers. Love to connect with people, right? So if you listen to this, we connected. Let's just connect. Our paths could cross sometime. And then my personal website is jeffarnold.com.
Jeffarnold.com. Okay. Awesome. So jeffarnold.com, connect with Jeff on LinkedIn. Sweet. All right. Jeff, are you ready for the lightning round?
I am. I are.
Okay. So what is your favorite leadership quote?
Too soon old, too late smart.
Too soon old,
Old,
too late
too late
smart.
smart.
What does
Right.
that mean?
So time passes so quickly, right? And then we finally get some knowledge, and we're like, "Oh man, it's too late. I can't. I'm close to retirement, or the next generation doesn't want the knowledge." So too soon old, too late smart, right? So kind
Too
of,
soon old.
kind of think about it, right? And then I've got another one just kind of bubbled up, if you don't mind. It's there are no ordinary moments, right? So if you can just walk into each situation and understand that there are no ordinary moments. You might be in a valley right now of despair and darkness or whatever. There's a mountain up there that's got bright and sunshine and rainbows. So enjoy those too. There are no ordinary moments, and there's no way you can just walk in the mountaintops. It doesn't exist, right? Life is all about peaks and valleys.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. What's your favorite book?
Well, my books. No,
Okay. Well, you
no,
got to pick one of them.
no. You know what? The one that has spoke to me and transformed and challenged me the most is Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth: Why Most Businesses Don't Work and What to Do About It. So that one I've probably read so many times. Well, I have. All the pages are dog-eared. So The E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Nice. Okay. What are you most curious about right now?
Ooh, this is a great lightning round, right? I'm going to be honest with you. This deferred tax trust that you just mentioned to me, that's what I'm most curious about right now. Seriously, not that's just it's piqued my curiosity. So that's where my mind's at right now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, if that's piqued your guys' minds too, you can find out more about that at the capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. And we also have a mastermind every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern. So you can come and learn more about that. And there's a ton of information on YouTube. Continue to listen to the podcast. We talk about it all the time. So phenomenal environment to come learn. Bring your CPAs, bring your tax attorneys, bring your skeptics, bring everybody, and we would love to just have that dialogue and connect up. And it's a great environment. So capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. And if you want to get in touch with Jeff, connect with him on LinkedIn, and make sure to check out jeffarnold.com and pick up a book or two if you're interested at all in the insurance, wonderful, sexy world of insurance, and so on and so forth. So, Jeff, thanks so much for your time, man. Any parting words?
Hey, just appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and your guests, man. It's been fun. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks again. And thanks everybody for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options, not having a clear plan is the enemy. Using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is the best way to create, preserve, and grow your wealth. Please rate, review, and subscribe, guys, and we will see you on the next one. Don't forget to come to the mastermind, capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Have a good one.